This is one of those stories that just sticks with you. It's got everything: unbelievable wealth, a family completely torn apart by betrayal, and a truly brutal murder that just captured the world's attention. It's a crime that literally crossed the globe, and it leaves behind this trail of questions about money, greed, and what justice really even means. For a while, the story kind of went quiet. But then in February 2026, it came roaring back into the headlines with this absolutely stunning piece of news. The man who murdered his girlfriend's mom, stuffed her body in a suitcase, and left it in a taxi is now walking free. So when Tommy Schaefer was released from a prison in Bali after serving just 12 years of his 18-year sentence, you can imagine the reaction. It was instant outrage. And it really forced everyone to ask one simple, unavoidable question. How in the world did this happen? So let's be clear about who we're talking about here. This is Tommy Schaefer. He became infamous around the world as the Bali Suitcase killer after he was convicted back in 2015. And the victim wasn't some random person. It was Sheila von Wiesmack, the very wealthy mother of his girlfriend at the time, Heather Mack. It's really the central question of this whole affair. How does a convicted killer just walk out of prison so soon? Well, the answer isn't really found in a Balinese courtroom. To understand it, we have to go all the way back to the beginning, to a family that was basically a ticking time bomb of money and violence. All right, Section 2, the $1 million powder keg, a family's dark secret. You see, this murder wasn't just some sudden, random act. No, it was the explosive finale to years and years of dysfunction. So let's meet the key players. On one side, you've got Sheila von Wiesmack, a very rich Chicago socialite. On the other, you have Heather, her teenage daughter, and the person set to inherit everything. And smack in the middle of them, a trust fund worth around $1.6 million. But the most important detail here is their relationship, which was, to put it mildly, a complete disaster, incredibly volatile and deeply abusive. And if you want to know just how volatile it was, get a load of this number. Between 2004 and 2013, the police were called to their home for domestic disturbances 86 times. That's right, 86. This was not a private family drama. And we're not just talking about shouting matches. The violence was escalating. Police reports document Heather punching her mother's already broken ankle, Heather breaking her mother's arm, and even biting her. This was a very clear, very well-documented pattern of abuse, with the daughter as the aggressor. So the breaking point came with this fancy trip that Sheila planned to the St. Regis Resort in Bali. It was supposed to be a chance for them to reconcile, to patch things up. But Heather had other ideas. She secretly used her mom's credit card to fly her boyfriend, Tommy Schaefer, out to meet them, setting the stage for an absolute tragedy. Which brings us to Section 3, Murder in a Suitcase. We're now at August 12, 2014, and inside a 5-star luxury hotel suite, things are about to get horrific. Inside that hotel room, everything just exploded. It started with a huge argument between Sheila and Tommy, reportedly over the family money. But it escalated incredibly quickly when Tommy grabbed a heavy metal fruit bowl and bludgeoned the 62-year-old woman to death. And maybe the most chilling part of all, Heather then helped her boyfriend stuff her own mother's body into a suitcase. Their escape plan, if you can even call it that, was clumsy and just desperate. They hauled the suitcase downstairs and tried to put it in a taxi, but blood was already seeping out. The taxi driver got suspicious, and the couple just panicked. They abandoned the suitcase right there and fled on foot. It's no surprise they were found and arrested the very next day. Okay, Section 4, 2 trials, 2 fates. Now, their arrests kicked off this absolutely bizarre legal saga that ended up exposing the huge gap between 2 completely different justice systems. And, just look at this comparison. It tells you everything. In Indonesia, Heather got a 10-year sentence and only served 7. Tommy got 18 years and served 12. But back in the United States, it's a whole different ballgame. Heather was immediately rearrested and was just sentenced to 26 years in federal prison. And Tommy, who is now free from his Bali sentence, is about to be deported to face a U.S. trial where he could get life. It's the same exact crime, but the consequences are worlds apart. So let's just quickly recap the outcomes. While she was in prison, Heather actually gave birth to her and Tommy's daughter, Stella. When Heather was released and deported in 2021, the FBI was literally waiting for her at the airport. Now, Tommy faces that exact same reality. And what about that $1.6 million trust fund that was at the center of all of this? Well, it was eventually settled, and the money went to their daughter, Stella. Which brings us to our final section, an unforgivable betrayal. Because after all is said and done, this case leaves us with some really deep, really unsettling questions about family, betrayal, and the nature of justice itself. I think the first question is the most obvious one, right? Does 12 years in prison actually feel like justice for a crime this brutal, for a murder that was, at its core, committed for money? And that leads to an even bigger, more complicated question. Can justice really be served when what it means changes so drastically from one country to the next? If a crime is worth a life sentence in one place, but only 12 years in another, what does the word justice even mean anymore? At the end of the day, the Bali Suitcase murder is just a dark, cautionary tale. It's a showcase for the corrosive power of greed, it shines a spotlight on the cracks in international justice, and it shows us the absolute darkest side of family dynamics. You know, legal systems can debate sentences and jurisdictions forever, but when you step back and just think about the life of Sheila von Wiese Mack, murdered and thrown away by her own daughter, a much simpler, more human truth comes into focus. Some betrayals are just unforgivable.